Thank you for joining me today. Unafraid Show, Reister or Wrong. It's your boy, George Reister, in the building. Thank you for joining me. You know this is the Unafraid Show, where we are not sheep, where we bring the heat, the truth, the way, and the light, because we believe in the power of truth. The power of truth. And this is a place where you can save your tears. Don't come to the Unafraid Show crying about you being offended, about your feelings hurt. None of that. We have honest discussions here at the Unafraid Show, and GSB grow some balls when you come in here, because it can get a little heated sometimes. So you can't come in here with your sensitive clothes on. You got to come in here ready to rumble, ready to be honest, ready to tell the truth. And don't forget, share the Unafraid Show. Swipe up, send stars, hearts, all of that stuff. Like it. Share the feed. Tell a friend about the Unafraid Show. And make sure you email all your questions to unafraidshow@gmail.com. Send them in. Swipe up now. We got a bunch of really cool things up for you guys today. First of all, the Mark Zuckerburg testimony is a big deal. We're going to talk about that. My 3 biggest takeaways from that. Again, I posted the Right or Wrong 1-minute videos about Chief Wahoo. We're going to talk about that, about whether he should go with the Cleveland Indians. Mark McGwire says that he would have hit 70. This fool said he would have hit 70 home runs even without PEDs. Nobody believes you. We need more people. Mayweather, McGregor 2 will be in the Octagon. And guess who is going to win? Guess who's going to win? It's going to be Floyd Mayweather. And the Miami Marlins are going to Miami Marlins because, you know, they are the same team run by the same people, all of that. Where we're going to start today is Mark Zuckerberg. That's where we're going to start because this is a big deal. So Facebook had the problem with Cambridge Analytica, letting people's information out, all that. So now Mark Zuckerberg agreed to testify in front of Congress and, you know, tell them about Facebook, let them all this happen. And my 3 biggest takeaways from this entire thing is, number one, when you look at this picture, why are there so many damn cameramen? Like, can there be just one person to take pictures? Just one. This is absolutely outrageous. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the second thing is, well, the second part of the first thing is Mark Zuckerberg's haircut. He looks like Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders. Absolutely just an awful haircut for a billionaire to have. Like, you have to do better than that. But on a serious note, though, it feels like to me, tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like to me that my biggest takeaway was that the senators feel like that they are more interested in putting restrictions on Facebook and their privacy policies than they are in terms of restricting guns and changing gun laws. That's the thing that I find very crazy and interesting, that we have this big old hearing about Facebook and trying to find a way to make Facebook safer for everybody and all this. But we don't do the same thing with guns and kids. Please make that make sense to me. But I digress. The second biggest takeaway from the Mark Zuckerberg testimony is this, is that the people asking the questions, the senators asking the questions, clearly should not be asking the questions. I mean, this is like hitting home runs for Mark Zuckerberg. No tough questions, because you have novices, Facebook novices, asking him questions. Like, they could literally let my 12-year-old son probably ask tougher questions. He doesn't even use Facebook. He's just really good at the internet. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. One of the senators literally asked Mark Zuckerberg, because Mark Zuckerberg said that the platform is free and that Facebook is committed to having at least some portion of Facebook free forever. That they're committed to that. And then the senator has the nerve to ask, he said, okay, so how do you have a sustainable business model if your service is free? And he looked around and laughed, and he's like, because we run ads. Because we run ads. Yes, man. Like, everybody knows how this works. And they're asking like simple, basic questions. And the third takeaway is this, and most importantly, is that is that what kind of restrictions, and well, actually I should say, what kind of obligations should companies be under in terms of ethical and moral standards and all of that? Like, seriously, what should their obligation be? Because on one hand, everybody says, oh, there's too much government regulation. We want the government to take a back seat. We want the people to do all these things. But then you turn around and you want the government to turn around and put restrictions on it. So you, don't want the government all up in your business, but then you do want them to police what should or should not be on Facebook. What? You want them to police what should or should not. You want Facebook to police it, but then, like Ted Cruz came on there. Oh, wait, but hold up. Are you policing Democrats? Are you policing Republicans? Whatever it is. How on earth can you ask a company like Facebook to police who's watching the company? I'm sorry, to police what people post on content. Because you can consider whatever you want to. Hate speech, you can consider it whatever. Whatever you want to. I mean, imagine people getting on Facebook, which they do now, talking about abortion. Some people are going to find that offensive because they've had abortions. Some people are going to find it offensive for whatever reason. I mean, like, you see, you go down a slippery slope when you're asking people to, when you're asking companies to monitor, quote unquote, what's offensive. Zuckerberg already said that 20,000 employees, by the end of this year, they'll have 20,000 employees on Facebook monitoring content, including AI doing it as well. I mean, that's scary as well, because in a day and age that we want our privacy, we're like, oh, don't be all up in our face. But the day and age, like, the privacy concerns have changed through the years. Like, the same privacy concerns you have 20 years ago are not the same privacy concerns that we have now. Like I just talked about a few weeks ago, well, actually about a week ago, about Madison Square Garden using facial recognition software to talk about, to monitor you going into Madison Square Garden, and they use it for advertising. So they take a picture of your face when you come in and invading your privacy that way. I mean, come on, man. Like, that makes no sense to me. It makes no sense at all. Like, how can you get mad about one thing and then have a problem with something else? It's absolutely ridiculous, because when you look at, like, back to the privacy concerns, because you have all these old people asking questions about privacy. They're saying, oh, well, so if you get my data and then I delete the data, do you still have the data that I opted in for you to use? Like, they clearly don't understand how this works. They need to have their interns asking questions, or their junior senators or whoever, or just round up people from Mashable and get Mark Zuckerberg to answer tougher questions, because they clearly don't understand the interface. They don't understand, any of that. And it's very, very clear by their questions. So you need to have people answering tough questions, because yes, there does need to be privacy. We do need to have our own place and all that. But the question is, how much and where does that look like? Because going to Facebook is like going to the mall. So you go to the mall, you search around, you see all type of cool stuff in the mall. But how much privacy do you really expect to have in the mall when you're like if you're in the mall and you're picking up stuff and you're like, oh, I kind of like this shirt. Oh, I kind of like these pants. Oh, this is a nice top. Oh, these shoes are dope. That's what you're doing. You're in a mall. Facebook is a mall. So if you're doing that and the store sees what you're picking up, is that then a problem? Do you kind of getting what I'm putting down? You picking up what I'm putting down right now? Because it doesn't make sense for people to consistently be upset about this when there is a change of privacy concerns that these old people asking questions don't have. You guys are watching Unafraid Show, right or wrong. Please make sure you swipe up, share the feed, tell a friend about the Unafraid Show. And I do agree. I do agree that Facebook has to find a way to not allow its platform, because if I owned Facebook, I wouldn't want my platform to be used to manipulate elections, to put negative things out in the world. So I would try to find a way to police it as that's my own ethical boundaries and limits, and that I feel like that a company should have, that you should try to be doing good out in the world. But that's just like one of the other senators asked, oh, how about these cell phones? These kids are using cell phones. And now you have the kids messenger app, and kids are on their phones way too much, being on the internet. It's addictive and this and that. Bro, that sounds like a parenting problem. Get your kid off the damn phone. Get your kid off the damn phone. But the next thing we got up today, because Gary Spruce is on. The next thing we got up today is Chief Wahoo. Chief Wahoo, the Cleveland Indians mascot. You guys are going to enjoy this. If you feel any type of way about this, please make sure that you send it to a friend, swipe up, share the Unafraid Show. So this logo here, right? Chief Wahoo. This is the logo. Mind you, not the mascot. I mistakenly said mascot yesterday, and people made sure to correct me that he is not the mascot. He is the logo for the Cleveland Indians. Yes, they've changed it to the C, but he still uses it, but it's still used. The fans still wear it, still on apparel, all of that stuff. Okay. Now, is this racist? Is this offensive? And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I got to thinking about it a little bit more, and then I posted about it. I posted the 1 minute right or wrong about the logo and all that stuff. People had a lot to say. And I will say this. Honestly, it was not offensive to me initially. It wasn't offensive to me initially. The logo, the name Indians, any of that was not offensive to me initially. And then I started thinking about it. And I was like, hold up. The reason why I'm not offended by this is because this does not affect me. Like, this is not something that shows up in my life as bothersome, because it literally has nothing to do with me. I'm not a Native American. Like, I don't have that history. However, if it were something about me and has something to do with my life, yeah, hell yeah, I would have a problem with it. Hell yeah, I would have a problem with Chief Wahoo. And that's what really changed my thinking and feeling about the situation, is where I looked at it from the history of Native Americans and all that. And then the question is this: how does it? The question is this: is how on earth do you believe, or can I believe, that we can use the same old that this has been here forever scenario, the this has been here forever line? Like, how can we really use that as a defense for not changing a logo like this? Because think about when this logo was made. Like, this logo was not made during a time where people were looking at other people from other cultures as equals. This was likely made by somebody who didn't have the same warm and fuzzy feelings toward people of color, regardless of whatever it was. Like, it wasn't made during that time. So, and then you have red faces, which perpetuate stereotypes and all of that. So how on earth could you expect, like, people to not be offended by this logo? Then there is the other thing that people bring up. They tell me, George, so where does it stop? Like, okay, let's change the Indians logo, but where does it stop? Is the Vikings now offensive? The Minnesota Vikings? Are the Virginia Mountaineers offensive? And my answer to that is no. My answer to that is no. The reason why it's not offensive is because, A, you don't really hear too many people crying and complaining about the Notre Dame logo. If they do, please send it to me, unafraidshow.com, and I will be happy to talk about it. And there's not that same history of people taking their land, doing them wrong like there are with Native Americans. And it's not just perpetuating a stereotype. So that's the difference. So that's the difference, because people are like, where does it stop? Where does it stop if we allow this? We're getting too soft. It's not a big deal. Yeah, it's not a big deal because it doesn't offend you. If the mascot depicted something that was disparaging about your heritage, I'm going to assume that you would have a problem with it. I don't know about the name Indians, but the mascot absolutely needs to be changed. It's not even, like, it doesn't even make sense for it to continue. Someone made a comment. They said Indians is a team name. It was never meant to be an offensive slur. If it were directed to anybody in a negative form, such as a put down, it would be offensive. I'm more talking about the actual logo as opposed to the name Indians. Because what we went through in California, because it's happened in California. I talked a little bit about it yesterday. Like, there were the Birmingham Braves, which is a high school out here in the San Fernando Valley. They changed their name to the Patriots, and I didn't understand why. And then when you look at the Atlanta Braves, what did the Atlanta Braves do? They took the Mohawk Native American off of their caricature, off of their logo and on their hats, and just gave them a hatchet. No problem there. No problem there. If the Braves, Native Americans don't have a problem with that, I'm good with that. That's really where I have to live on this, because it's not my fight. I'm just asking where it is. I mean, where is it really? Because it's easy for us to make light about things that don't apply to us. And then it's also real easy for us to be overly sensitive about everything and then try to speak for other people. Because that's one thing that always bugs me, is when people like to speak for other people's causes. They want to speak up for them. Oh, this is offensive to black people. Hold up. Let the black people talk. See what they think about it. If they think it's offensive, then okay, yeah, you can chime in and be an echo, a sounding board. But you don't have to speak for everybody else. Let them speak up first. And the Native Americans have been speaking up about this issue for over 20 years, and to very little avail. One thing, though, crazy story that I have to show you guys. Believe it or not, because I was looking for some other offensive logos, and here is one that I found. This in Coachella, California, where the big music festival is. This was the name of their school, the Fighting Arabs. That was the name, the Fighting Arabs. Who thought that was a good idea? And it didn't stop there. The Fighting Arabs also, at like pep rallies, school events, they would have belly dancers instead of cheerleaders. Games and all that. Belly dancers instead of cheerleaders. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. No problem. Yeah. It just seems normal to us. Do you know why that this behavior has been deemed acceptable and okay? I'm going to tell you this. You guys, please pay attention to this if you don't listen to anything else that I say today. The reason why logos like this and other things have been deemed okay and just tolerated out in society is because the powers that be, the majority of the people in this country are white. And a lot of times they are demonized as being racist if they don't agree and all that. And that's not true. Here is what is true. A lot of them have been desensitized by their fathers, by their grandfathers, grandmothers, grandfathers who were desensitized from other people. Like, because when you look at when people used to be lynched out in the street, or when you looked at people that were like treated poorly, even the people that didn't agree with it, they still saw it and they were desensitized by it. And so when you turn around, even if you don't believe that, when you grow up and like kids who are in their 30s, 40s, however old they are, and they've seen negative things like this affect other cultures, they've been desensitized to it. Along with us, we've been desensitized to it as well. So that's where a lot of this comes from, where that, oh, this doesn't need to be changed. Chief Wahoo doesn't need to be changed. All it's no big deal. Because there's been a desensitization of offense and poor treatment of other people and other cultures. We've been desensitized to that. That's where that comes from. So if you didn't hear anything else that I said today, pay attention to that, please. Next thing that we got up today is an interesting story about Mark McGwire. Mark McGwire, one of the home run kings, one of the Bash brothers with him and Jose Canseco. These dudes hit a bunch of home runs, did a lot of great things. They also did steroids. Funny part about steroids is that while it does not, well, actually, I'll go back. Mark McGwire said that he would have hit 70 home runs even without PEDs. Because mind you, he hit 70 home runs with PEDs. He was taking steroids. He said he would have done it without it. I find that laughable. I'm like, yeah, man, yeah, right. No way. I got some oceanfront property in Hawaii. I'm sorry, so oceanfront property in Nebraska I want to sell you if you think I'm going to believe that. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night, Mark McGwire. No in the hell way would you have hit 70 home runs without PEDs. Like, steroids don't improve your hand-eye coordination, but they do make you a little bit stronger, which might have contributed. I mean, because he was a big, strong dude, I'm just going to say maybe out of that 70, 4 or 5 home runs that would have been long warning track balls might have creeped over. Okay, 4 or 5, which is not like a huge number. Okay, I'll give you that. But the reason why Mark McGwire said he took steroids is for health and recovery purposes, which is the most important thing in sports, especially in pro sports. Baseball, you got 162 games. Basketball, you got 82 games. Hockey, you got 82 games. Football, you got 16 games in 17 weeks. So it's a grueling schedule. And what do you want? You want recovery. You want your body healthy. You want to be able to flourish. And that's what his steroids did. So it's not the fact that Mark McGwire didn't have the ability to hit 70 home runs. It's the fact that he was using it for recovery, which allowed him to stay at optimal performance or near optimal performance for longer while other people's bodies are breaking down. And that's what gives you the 70 home runs instead of the 60 or instead of the 52. That's where the margin is. It's in the recovery, because every athlete is looking for a recovery edge, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, soccer, hockey, whatever you're playing. Every player is looking for a recovery edge. And that's what Mark McGwire was doing. I mean, the prime example, best example out of anybody in the whole world right now is LeBron James. LeBron James is getting he spends about $1 million a year on his body in terms of hiring people to be around him, putting a gym in his house, strength and conditioning coaches, people to stretch him out, food, chef, all of this stuff to take care of his body, and it shows. And it shows. Like, imagine if Derrick Rose, Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Ryan. I mean, like, well, I should say all of those guys. If they had taken care of their bodies in that same way, they wouldn't have broken down. They would not have broken down. Every athlete's looking for that recovery. And somebody said that Barry Bonds was a needle freak. Yeah, he was. That's why they had to come up with the clear and the cream. Regardless of whether he knew, didn't know, he knew that a little something was going on. But I'm a person who is a sports guy. And Barry Bonds is my, my first favorite baseball player of all time. First favorite. And then Ken Griffey Jr. and A-Rod number 3. So that lets you know where I stand on this issue. Lets you know where I stand on this issue. Staying with baseball, though. Staying with baseball. You have the Miami Marlins. The Miami Marlins are being sued. They are, mind you, the Miami Marlins, who've been shedding payroll and everything else like it was the thing to do, are being sued. So they're the cheapest team in baseball, and they're being sued by the county, Miami-Dade County, and the city of Miami for the deal that went on with their former owner, Jeffrey Loria, over his $2.2 billion sale of the team. So he bought the team for like $140 million and then turned around and sold it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He bought it for $159 million. Sold it for $1.2 billion, and then somehow claimed that he took a $140 million haircut in the process. Man, if you don't get the hell out of here, bro, nobody believes you. And then the city funded a lot of that stadium, so they want their bread back. And here's where it gets interesting. So the cheap Miami Marlins, who were owned by swindler Jeffrey Loria, they are claiming that the city of Miami and the county of Miami-Dade cannot sue them because they are actually not residents of Miami. That the Miami Marlins are not residents of Miami, but they're actually residents of the British Virgin Islands. Because there's a parent company. There's a parent company that owns a minority stake in the Marlins. So they're trying to say that because the British Virgin Islands is a normal tax haven for our people. What kind of sense does that make? This is absolutely insane. And this is, I mean, like the Miami Marlins are a joke. They got the Marlins man who I had never heard of parading around out there, putting his services up for sale. Nobody cares, dude. Like, you're not Jimmy Goldstein. Jimmy Goldstein, if you don't know who he is, he's a dude at the NBA games, especially in the playoffs, with the cockeyed hat and the oh man, I forgot what you call it, with the scarf tied around his neck and the leather and the leopard print and all that. That's him. The dude who made billions of dollars selling Century City, owning Century City. Yep, that's him. The Miami Marlins going to do what the Miami Marlins are going to do. Last thing we got up today is Floyd Mayweather. I'm telling you guys this right now. Floyd Mayweather is going to fight Conor McGregor in the Octagon, and he's going to beat him. And he's going to beat him because the odds are forever in Floyd Mayweather's favor. Always got a mental advantage. He's always in peak physical condition because he doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, and other fighters do. He's the cash cow. That means that the refs, the gloves, the location, and everything is always in his favor. I mean, really think about this. Like, the man has really been training for over 2 years by the time this fight takes place. Because remember, he started training before the first McGregor fight because he wasn't sure how he was going to do it, like Octagon or boxing first. So he's been training for years for this. And then Conor McGregor is more of a stand-up fighter anyway. Like, this is not the typical athlete transitioning from a sport to another one. Like, he's already used to combat sports and he knows how to get punched in the face. Like, he's good at getting punched in the face. I mean, come on, man. Come on. Like, it's not like he's going to go fight Demetrius Johnson or George St. Pierre where he would get absolutely demolished. That's not happening. So, but we'll talk about more of that tomorrow, though. You guys are watching Unafraid Show. George Reister. Thank you guys for joining me as usual. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy. Make sure you share the Unafraid Show. Tell a friend about it. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Download the podcast. Apple iTunes, tune in, wherever